Well, hey, good morning, everybody. Good to see all of you guys. If you are new here, my name is John Wagler, and I'm a part of this Hill City team. And so thankful you decided to join us. Yes, someday we will have heat. Someday. On a related note, we are selling new Hill City hoodies in the lobby on your way out if you'd like to grab one in the midst of this. But just so thankful that you are here today as we are continuing on this series called Never Thirst Again, where we're spending 4 weeks looking at the story of Jesus and the woman at the well. And it's the longest recorded conversation that Jesus actually has with somebody. And so we're really diving into, last week we were looking at how this idea of cultural norms don't quench our thirst for a meaningful life, and started looking at some of the ways that there were some differences in between what Jewish folks believed and what the Samaritans believed, and how Jesus kind of spoke into some of those things, but also taking a look at the ways that Jesus interacted with this woman in such a powerful way that they ended up having this conversation. And he said, hey, when you have what I have, it's a living spring, it's a bubbling spring, it's living water, and you'll never thirst again. And so they have this incredible interaction, and that's what we kicked it off. And then we're going to look at the next section in the story here today. But when you think of influencing, this is like how I want us to kind of frame this whole conversation here today. But I want to think about influencing. When we talk about that in the social media word, it's like a bizarre thing, right? That you can be an influencer and make a living off of it. And but it's good for them. Like they do this, and here's what happens. Like you can get a big following. You can kind of help dictate or manipulate how people buy. I have a friend, I was watching a commercial this one day, and I knew a friend of mine knew the celebrity on the commercial, so I called him and I just said, does he really use that product? And he goes, oh, heck no, he just does it for the money. And but you see all this all the time that like there's these influencers that are really designed towards, sometimes it's good, like creating awareness towards certain things and companies respond, but some people just make money off of like just being product placement for people and influence. But for me, when I think about influencing, I think about certain people in my life, but I also think about the first book I had to read after I graduated college and went into sales training at the company I worked at. It was How to Win Friends and Influence People. How many of you guys have read that book? Yeah, great, incredible book that's withstood the test of time, and there were just some amazing insights. It was first written in 1936, I believe, and so I remember reading it, and there were some things that really stuck out to me that are going to come into play with this story. One of the big quotes that I love in there is this, that any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, and most fools do. But it takes character and self-control to be understanding and forgiving. And I love that quote because it's really easy to complain, isn't it? It's really easy to, even the other day, just driving through, you feel like the stress of holiday traffic already, right? And it's just easy to complain. And it's easy to condemn or criticize other people around you. But man, it takes self-control to really be understanding and forgiving. But there's another part of the book that I love that talks about the way that you can, like, that a leader can influence the behavior of somebody else. And he lists out 6 things. And I want you to take these 6 things in because you're going to see Jesus does this within the context of this story. And here are the 6 that enables you to influence the people's behavior around you. The first thing is, do not promise anything you cannot deliver. Forget about the benefits to yourself and concentrate on the benefits to the other person. The second thing is, know exactly what it is you want the other person to do. The third thing is, ask yourself what it is the other person really wants. Fourth thing is, consider the benefits that person will receive from doing what you suggest. The fifth thing is, match those benefits to the other person's wants. And the sixth thing is, when you make your request, put in a form that will convey to the other person the idea that he or she will personally benefit. And so I was reading through those things, and I was like, hey, Jesus does this. I think he stole that from Jesus. Like that's like Jesus does this in this conversation with this woman. He kind of maps out all 6 of these things to influence her behavior. But what I love about this story that I think gets overlooked so quickly is this is a little moment. You see, when Jesus, he's got a big following. He's got people that want to see him do more big miracles, and everything wants bigger and bigger and bigger. And Jesus, this is what's so beautiful about Jesus. He takes care of the little moments in his life. He is present in the little moments of his life. This story is, out of all the stories they could have chosen to write about, John chooses this one, and it's an interaction between him and a woman. not him and 1,000 other people. It was him and a woman. And it's a powerful story, and it allows us to see that we have to take great care of these little moments. Jesus sets this amazing example of what it means to really be present, really means to really stay committed to that. And I want us to have this one thought as we approach the passage here this morning, and that's this, that our commitment to being present in little moments will determine the depth and the authenticity of our influence. See, you can get on a big stage and you can do bigger things and you can tweet something out or you can use a social media platform and you can manipulate or you can coerce people to do certain things. But man, when you're talking about real depth, when you're talking about real authentic influence, it happens in the little moments, the little interactions that we have on a daily basis that we sometimes overlook. That sometimes we get too busy, that sometimes we get too distracted with. And so I want us to take a look at how Jesus interacts with this woman and sets the example of why it's so important to be present with these little moments. So we're going to be in John chapter 4. We're going to pick up at verse 13, which overlaps a little bit to where we ended last week. It says, this is Jesus replying to the woman after she had asked him a question about the water. He said, anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again. But those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. Please, sir, the woman says, give me this water, and then I'll never be thirsty again, and I won't have to come here to get water. Go and get your husband, Jesus says. And she says, I don't have a husband. And he says, you're right. You don't have a husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and you aren't even married to the man you're living with now. You certainly spoke the truth. Sir, you must be a prophet. So tell me, why is it that you Jews insist that Jerusalem is the only place of worship, while we Samaritans claim it is here at Mount Gerizim where our ancestors worshipped? Jesus replies, believe me, dear woman, the time is coming when it will no longer matter whether you worship the Father on this mountain or in Jerusalem. You Samaritans know very little about the one you worship, while we Jews know all about him, for salvation comes through the Jews. But the time is coming, and indeed it is here now, when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. The Father is looking for those who will worship him that way. For God is spirit, so those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth. The woman replies, I know the Messiah is coming, the one who's called Christ, and when he comes, he will explain everything to us. Then Jesus tells her, I am the Messiah. Y'all, there's so much in this little section of this story, and so many different ways I could have gone with it, but I really wanted to concentrate on the little moment that happens here and the reason why it's so important to be present in these little moments. And so I want to highlight 4 things of why it's so important and how those 4 things actually help us be influencers around to the people around us. The first thing is this, is it builds trust. When you're present in little moments, it builds trust. Jesus and this woman are talking, and we talked about some of the differences between Samaritans and Jewish folks last week, but Jesus and this woman are talking, and which would have been like outside of cultural norms and would not have been acceptable within culture, but Jesus does it anyway. And he sits down and he talks to her, and at one point he says to her, hey, go get your husband. And she says, and she goes, I don't have a husband. He goes, you're right, you've had 5 husbands, and you're living with one now that isn't even your husband. And she goes, now tell me about this whole Mount Gerizim thing, and why we're worshiping differently. Now you might be thinking, well, man, this woman is so immoral. And that's kind of the normal thought pattern around this woman, if you have been around the story at all growing up. But I would say this, I actually don't think she's immoral. And here's the reason. We do not know like her whole background. We do not understand what might have happened in her past. For all we know, that could have been when she was really young and made some decisions, or she could have had several husbands die, or she could have been part of a victim of the no-fault divorce kind of thing that was where you could divorce people for not cooking the way you wanted them to. So there are a lot of reasons that she could have had 5 husbands. And even the one that she's living with now, it doesn't mean that it's sexual. It could just mean that she's just living with someone that's just not her husband, which wouldn't have been acceptable throughout the communities there either. So we actually don't know whether or not she was immoral. I actually believe she wasn't because of how this story ends and the impact she has and the respect she has in the community. But Jesus is talking to her, and he's not focused on the husband's thing. And here's why. Like, think about it. If the husband's thing was the biggest deal, don't you think he would have kept talking about it? Don't you think he would have been like, you've had 5 and you're not living the one? And when she tried to switch the subject, he goes, no, let me bring it back just for a second and address this whole 5 thing. right? Like let's calm it down a little bit. Like we've got other options. And so, but he doesn't do that. He then kind of feeds into like this moment. Why? Because he's really trying to build trust. He's paying attention to what really matters. She's not concerned with that part, and Jesus is not concerned with the husbands. He is concerned with her heart and where it is. Now, if Jesus were distracted or interested in what was next or what his next teaching was going to be or the next place he was going to, he would have missed this. But he wasn't distracted. He was present in this little moment with this one woman. He was present. Let me ask you guys this. Do you feel like you're in a hurry a lot? Raise your hand. Like you can raise your hand. Yeah. Okay. Keep them up for a second because I want you to look around of all the people who think they're in a hurry a lot. Okay. Know this. A culture of hurry means a culture of worry. And here's what happens. When we start worrying all the time, it builds our stress level. When we are always in a hurry, what does that mean? You cannot be present in the moment. We miss out little moments. And listen, I'm an offender of this, all right? So my hands are up as well, all right? So we are offenders of this all the time. When we are constantly in a hurry, you will be distracted. When you're distracted, we are going to miss out on moments all the time where we should be present and we're not present. Where we should really invest in the conversation and we don't invest in the conversation. When we're more concerned about moving on to the next thing rather than being present right where we are at this moment. This week at the gym, I had a moment where, and literally I had already written this sermon. I had a moment where this guy, I could have had an interaction, but guess what? I didn't want to. Like we were like using the same machine, and I was like moving in, and he had like this opportunity. He even took off his headphones, and I still had mine in, right? And you can like still kind of hear people, and I was just like, I don't feel like talking, and so like I just like kind of just had like a hand gesture conversation with him and like moved on. But later on that week, I thought to myself, did I miss a God moment? Did I miss a God moment right then and there because I just really wasn't present? I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I think I might have. Now, luckily, like he's there every day that I'm there too, so I might have to pray about that and reenact with him. But there's a reality that I think I missed a moment. Why? Because I was in a hurry. I wasn't present. You see, here's what Jesus does that is truly a miracle, and sets us an incredible example. He has this great pace about his life. He is a high achiever. He gets so much done. He is a big influencer, but you know what he's really great at too? Solitude and silence and rest and being present with the people that he is with. He doesn't miss out on those moments. So your pace and your presence matter. So when we all raise our hands and we're like, I'm in a hurry all the time, and then we've got to also come to grips with that our pace is not sustainable to be present with the people we are with. And so we're going to miss out on these powerful interactions, these little moments that build into big influence. We will have no opportunity to engage it, but Jesus does. Jesus does. Think about the thing that you're distracted with the most. Do you know, and you can check this on your phone, how much screen time you use? And so on average, it's a little over 3 hours for people on their phone. That doesn't mean computer and TV and Netflix and everything else, but it's a little more. But you know, if you do 3 hours on your phone every day for the entire year, that's over 1,000 hours on the phone, which is a little over 40 days. That's good, right? You touch your phone with your fingers on average, 2,500 times a day. So you're telling me that we aren't distracted, right? This week, my 2-year-old daughter, Ruby, she is like she wants to sing happy birthday all the time. And on the low end, 30 times a day, on the high end, 70 to 75. And it's just like constant. She walks around with this little plate and this little cup on top of it. And she'll come up to you and she'll be like, Dada, it's your birthday. And I'm like, okay. And she'll be like, happy birthday. And you got to sing along with her the whole time. And she'll be like, blow out your candle, Dada. And so you do it, right? So I am sitting there. I'm at my computer writing this sermon, actually. And she comes and sits down in the seat. She climbs up on the seat and sits down next to me at the table I was working at. And she pushes the plate over. She goes, Dada, it's your birthday. And so I'm like, all right, so we sing it. We sing it 5 times in a row. okay? And I'm thinking, I have put my dad time in. I would like to go and continue to work. And so I'm like, all right, we're done, Ruby. And she goes, no, Dada, it's your birthday. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, all right, let's sing. And I started to type a little bit as she goes, Dada, look at me. And right then I was just like, oh man. And so like, I was like, I closed my laptop, I pushed it aside, and I was like, all right. I was like, let's do it 2 more times. And then, so we sang it actually like 8 more times. And then, like, I then, put picked her up and put her, I was like, all right, I gotta work, I gotta do something. And so, but it was this little moment that even like my 2-year-old is saying, look at me. Look at me, Dada. And think about this. How often are you not looking at somebody? Like, I get it. Just because you got an Apple Watch, you think you're not looking at your phone, but everyone sees this, right? It's maybe even worse. And so, but how distracted are we all the time? How distracted are we? And we are not present in the moment. And so we miss out on these little moments of interaction with people. And in the midst of that, here's what happens. When we're distracted, we will become distant. Okay? And when that distance happens, here's what also that tells us. It's because we're so hurried and all of that. But that hurriedness, so everyone who raised their hand, myself included, that talks about being in a hurry all the time, guess what that also means? You have an area of your life where your pace is unhealthy, making you unhealthy. Either relationally unhealthy, spiritually unhealthy, physically unhealthy, or emotionally unhealthy. Because the pace is too much and you can't be present. And so the end result is you're going to be unhealthy. And so we're going to miss out on some of these interactions that we should long to have. And we miss out on building trust because we miss these little moments. Now, here's what I will say. There are a lot of things in life that you cannot control, but what you can control is your response to something. And the only way that you can do that is to be present. When you are not in a hurry, when you are not stressed, aren't your responses so much better? When you are not distracted, when you are not distant, aren't your responses so much better? That's a healthier person. And so in that moment, you think, there's a lot we can't control, but we can control our response. I can control my response to my kids or to my wife. Like, it is something that, I am working on it, y'all. And I realize that I need to get better at it. But understanding, I want to be present in the little moments and begin to see, I don't need my phone all the time. I do want to have boundaries. I do want to, I'm even, in my meetings now, I'm doing different things with my phone. When we're at home, I'm doing different things with my phone. Trying to figure out different ways to create, bigger boundaries to be present more. Think about it. How often have you used your phone to just numb your brain and missed out being present with people around you? It's unhealthy. And why? We're not present like we should. And we can't build trust with the people around us. The second thing that Jesus does is he creates this alignment, which is beautiful. So he's building trust and he's creating this alignment with her. And so in this interaction, it's this little moment where he shifts the conversation. And here's the thing why he shifts the conversation. It's because she really wasn't, the question she was asking in the beginning about, well, who worships what? And is it Mount Gerizim or is it Jerusalem? What you Jews say or whatever. And it's interesting because she's asking this question, but really the answer she's looking for maybe isn't the place that is the big deal. What the answer that she's looking for is actually who are the true worshipers of God. And how often have you been in a conversation with someone that the question someone's asking is not really the answer that they're looking for? That there's something else to what they're really asking or what they're really saying, but you miss out on it because you're not present in the moment. You're not paying attention to the little subtle hints they're giving about what they really care about, what really matters. What really I've had conversations with when we were especially in student ministry when we would sit with people and they would say things like, when we were talking about say sex in a relationship, and I'd be like, I feel like I need to have sex. It shows my love, and you start asking a few more questions. It's like, oh no. Oh, you've had some childhood hurt there where you didn't feel connected, and you feel like because you need to have sex to feel like that connection piece, to feel wanted and desired, that's actually the real reason you're doing it. And you start seeing these subtle little things that can happen and come into play that meant you wouldn't know if you weren't engaged in the little moment. See, these little moments start having these big dividends, conversation, and allow you to see, oh, let's create some alignment here so we can be present, begin to have a bigger influence on what really matters. There were years when we were trying to get pregnant, and we would see teenagers that would get pregnant, and then we would see people, new people that heard stories of people having abortions. They didn't want the child, and here we are. We spent years trying to get pregnant. We're doing what we could on our end. There's a joke there somewhere, but like we were doing we're doing our thing, and then we get to the place where we're getting tired of it, to the point of just being like, God, like, why in the world, like, did she get pregnant? She didn't even want to, and we want to, and we can't, and we think we'd be great parents. We want to take care of the kids, like all this stuff. And Lacey did something just so wise and so brilliant, and she made this statement because she was present, and she cared about this little moment. And she said this. She goes, you know what though? I don't want to keep looking to what's next and miss what God's doing in this season. And I wonder how often we are so fixated on maybe what's next that we miss out what God wants to do right now. Why? Because we're not present. We're not present. We miss out on all of this. And we miss out on aligning ourselves with God in this season of life. We miss out on aligning ourselves to create these moments of wisdom rather than being foolish. We miss out on aligning ourselves with the people that are present in this season of life, that God could produce some pretty incredible things. We get so disjointed. Like, do you see what Jesus is doing here? And I love this. He's creating this alignment too, because what she's trying to do is she's saying, are the Samaritans right or the Jews right? And he goes, no, it doesn't matter. What matters is I'm the Messiah. And that the people who worship me in spirit and truth, like, those are my people. Yeah, but are the Jews or Samaritans right? Doesn't matter. It matters that I'm the Messiah. He's creating alignment. It doesn't matter if the Republicans or Democrats are right. It doesn't matter. I'm the Messiah. See, we get so wrapped up in this side, in this tribe, or whatever it is, and Jesus is like, doesn't matter. I'm the Messiah. Guess what, y'all? The people you get so mad about that are also Christians that disagree with you on a topic, you are going to be spending eternity with them. And let me read the first part of that quote. Any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, and most fools do. Some people that are believers, and you might be thinking to yourself, well, I'm right. But maybe you're not. So think about this. Like what Jesus said, you want to create alignment in unity, in love together. And so it shifts the way that we are present in conversations and how we're present in this season of life. The third thing that Jesus does is he sets up for momentum and change. So he's building trust. He's creating alignment. And in this little conversation and being present in this little moment, he is setting up for big momentum and change in her life. In verses 19 through 20, it's all he's doing. He is laying the foundation of this trust, this alignment. And he's saying, all right, we're about to have this massive change. He says, it doesn't matter the place that you worship. That's not what it's about. It's about me. It doesn't matter which people are right. It's about me. Changes everything. And he begins to shift, and it creates this huge moment. You know what else is crazy? This is the first time he said, I'm the Messiah. So I'm the Christ, I'm the King, I'm the Savior that you've been waiting for. Like, so the Samaritan people, here's what's just fascinating about this. The Samaritan people, they were waiting for someone called the Taheb, all right? So that was like the prophet that would come to explain everything. And so the Samaritans and the Jewish people, they believed in the same 5 original books of the Old Testament, the Hebrew Scriptures. But the Samaritans stopped there. The Jews went on and believed about some of the other prophets. And so they were waiting for this Messiah, this Savior, this King, that believed to be coming out of the line of King David. But the Samaritans just believed that it was going to be this Taheb, this prophet. And so Jesus says, no, let me step into this for a second. It's not about what you know, it's about who I am. And it's this little thing that he does. He goes, you Samaritans, like you've been waiting, and yes, you're right in what you're saying. You've been waiting for this, but it's not the whole story. There's more to it. And we Jews, like we do know a little bit more than you do about all of this because salvation comes through this line. And so we've got a little more depth and a little more understanding about this. But guess what? It's not about what you know. It's about who I am and what you think of me. And sometimes we create these power dynamics, even within church structures, of like saying like, well, you don't know enough, so you're not really a part of us yet. You're not doing the things I'm doing, so you're not really a part of us yet. And Jesus is like, no, let me create some big momentum and change here. It's not about what you know, it's about who I am. You know what else he does to create this big momentum? He says, I am the Messiah for the first time to a Samaritan woman. A woman didn't even have a voice in those communities. They weren't even second-class citizens. They were way lower than that. Even if they saw a murder happen in front of their eyes, their voice, their testimony, their witness would not have been valid in the court of law. That's how little women were thought of during that time. Yet Jesus makes this bold proclamation of, I am the Messiah to a Samaritan woman. Well, why would he do that? Because when people would then visit this story later on, they would know the dynamics of this story and the differences with this community and the differences between men and women in particular at that time. And Jesus decides to do this. Let me just set a large example, doing this little thing in this little moment to take this big momentum to change that says, hey, you keep treating women like this, but guess who I talk to first? You keep trying to degrade women, but guess what? I'm going to elevate them. Like no other culture has been, and like in its entirety had ever done before. Like this is one of the things when people say like is the Bible real? Like this is like one of the things you can point to, the way that Jesus elevated women. It would have been a foolish thing to do in religious thought. But he did it like none other. Like no one else had ever done anything like this in the history of the world. And Jesus makes this bold proclamation. Why would he do that? It was this little moment with just the two people that created this big momentum and change. If you think about little moments in your life, or you think about the ways you've changed in life, let's say you got healthy physically. You know what it started off of? This little decision to change your diet, this little decision to maybe start walking. Then that turned into what? Then maybe you were able to jog for the first time or first time in a long time. And then you ran maybe a 5K, and then you ran a half marathon, and then you ran a full marathon, and then you're doing a triathlete, you're a triathlete now, and now you're jacked telling everybody about like how much you run and what you do, right? And you think, man, look at everywhere you've gone. You didn't just arrive there though. What did it do? It started off with a little decision, a little moment, and those things had compound interest one by one by one by one by one and created big momentum and change. The opposite is also true. You didn't get to a bad spot just automatically. There were little moments, right? And so he says, let me create this little moment to create this big momentum and change. And here's the last thing. He's got trust, alignment, momentum, and change. And then here's what happens. When you're present in these little moments, you're also inspiring to be around. You know why you're inspiring to be around? Is because think about how very few people in your life look you in the eye when you're talking. Think about how very few people in your life are present when they should be. Think about how very few people in your life really care about the little moments and the little conversations. See, we're so distracted. And so when you are that kind of person in someone's life, it's inspiring to be around. It influences people in incredible ways. There's someone who attends here. His name's Chris, and he plays in the band a lot of time. And he's one of the most encouraging people you will ever meet. I've watched him around people he doesn't know. He will stop what he's doing. He looks them right in the eye. It doesn't matter who else is around. And he begins to talk to them and encourage them, engage their story. And you can visibly see someone's whole demeanor change just by being around him. These little moments of encouragement, of taking the time to just be there, be present. It's inspiring because very few people do it. It's not the same. I remember when I had this one coach when I was a sophomore in high school, and we're playing our rival, and the game was to win the championship. And I had this like pivotal moment towards the end of the game, and he comes back to me, and he was just a big encourager of me. And it was all these little moments as a coach in my life, and I think about so many of them, even still to this day. But one just always makes me laugh because he knew me so well. And he grabs me by my neck, and he comes up to me. He's like, Wax, you make these 2 foul shots, every girl in this school will want you. And so, and it was like in this moment of like, and I was just like, and we win the game and everything else, but it's like a little funny moment. But what was that in that moment? It was like all this stress, all this chaos, and what did he do? He took me by the side, and he just went eye to eye, and it was something that, like, we laughed in the moment, right, and put me at ease and everything. But what was it? It had this great impact, and it was inspiring to be around. So are you an encourager of people? Are you taking little moments to be present with your friends or your coworkers or your family or your kids or whatever it is? Are you that kind of person that's taking these little moments? Because guess what? God does not care about the size of your platform, your social media followers, or if you're up on stage or anything else. He cares about your character and your integrity in the little moments, the small moments of every day. That's where real impact happens. Yes to Christ on the cross. Yes to his resurrection. Yes to what all that means in our lives. But you know what? It was little moments that built up that made that moment even far bigger. It was a little moment, because guess what? When Christ died and he rose again, do you think that played a role in that Samaritan woman's life to be this great witness? Do you think the little moments of those disciples when he died and he rose again, can you imagine how they were like, do you remember when he said? Do you remember when he said? Do you remember when he did this? Do you remember in the example that he set? Well, the same holds true for us. If you're a follower of Jesus, we should be the best at being present in the little moments, having a pace that resembles the way Jesus lived his life. If you're new with us here, we do this thing called 2 minutes to think at the end of every sermon, where we ask you to write down answers to the questions. And so here are the 3 questions for today. Number 1, what boundaries do you have in place to make sure you are present with the people around you? Number 2, how would you being present change the way you respond to people in your life? And then number 3, do you feel you are a person of influence at work or school? Why or why not? So put 2 minutes up there, and then I'll come back up and close us in prayer. Will you guys pray with me? God, this morning, I just pray that we will have truly open mind have an open mind and an open heart and a sweet sense of conviction about whether or not we're present like we should be. God, I pray that there would be a renewed sensitivity to little moments, little conversations that we have every single day, that we begin to appreciate them more. We begin to engage them more. And through that, we begin to have more influence with the people around us. Not influence for our own personal gain, but influence to help people see what it means to love well. Influence so that people would see what it really means to follow you. Influence to allow people to see that this big moment of your birth coming into this world that will celebrate at Christmas, your death, your resurrection, like all of these significant things, these big moments, God, that become the answer to real purpose and real hope and the answer to evil and injustice in this world, that those are all big things, God, but really how you've designed it to be is that people would see the love in us and through us and experience that truth. And then they would wonder even more about who you are. And so, God, I just pray that that would sink into our souls for anyone in here that calls themselves a Christian. And to maybe someone who doesn't, God, that this would start maybe a wrestling process in their heart of how they're living their life and what are they living it for and what could begin to look different if they lived it to follow you. So, God, we give this to you. In your name we pray. Everybody said? Amen. All right, guys, so this is my favorite day of the year next to baptisms, whenever we do baptisms, but when I get to announce the share offering amount. And so if you weren't a part of the last couple of months here, and what we did is we had this share offering where every year what we do, this will be the 5th year we've done it, what we do is we take all the money that comes in, we want everyone to participate, and we take all the money that comes in and we give it every cent away to all of our partners to begin to do work for tens of thousands of people throughout Richmond. And so we fully believe that God takes this money and multiplies it in a big way. And I've been super proud of myself for not giving it away, how much money, because I'm not really great at secrets that are like good secrets. You know, like if I get a gift for you, I'm going to give it to you before you actually deserve it. Like if I get you a Christmas gift, I'm just going to give it to you like on December 11th, right? Like that's what I do. And so, but I was good with this one. I even didn't let my mom know. So, but I just want to show you the amount. Then we get excited about this. It's not $3, $5, 53, 353. Whoop, there we go. So that was the amount to share. One of our core values as a church is to be irrationally generous. And, last year we gave a little over 119,000. This year it's, up to 152 every year. It keeps getting bigger and bigger. And it's so great because, again, this isn't just, hey, look what Hill City did. This is about a heart of generosity, which reveals the heart that Jesus has for us. And then what happens, and I promise you, what happens with this money, it goes far beyond what we could ever imagine. It isn't just that number. That number has way greater impact than just that number. So whatever you did to participate in it, just know it's going to continue to move forward. And I love the share offering because it's not about big gifts. Like we really didn't have many like larger gifts at all. It was about several hundred people coming together and being a part of it. That's why we always talk about this idea of being consistent givers and everything, because it just multiplies far larger than we could have ever imagined. And it's not about big gifts. It's about people coming together, being consistent, being regular, and being generous. And we got to see an example of that. Through 5 years, this is how much we've given just through the share offering. Over 419,000, which is great. Yeah. And, this year, outside of the share offering, we'll probably, when it's all said and done, we'll give away a little over about $250,000 as a church over our first 5 years of existence. We are getting close to giving about $700,000 away, and so next year, hopefully, we'll get over the $1 million mark, which will be really cool. And so that's because of your generosity. And I say this all the time: like the more that comes in, the more we're going to give away. Like this isn't like we're not padding the pockets thing. Like we want to be like someday I want to get up there, and I really believe this to be true. Someday we're going to get up there, and I'm going to be like, well, this year we gave away for share offering $2.4 million. Like, that's what I really believe that, because that's the heart we want for our community and the way we want to have impact. So just thank you guys so much for just continuing on this culture. As you guys are headed out today, there's going to be prayer over here for anyone that wants prayer for anything in their life. But I also want to highlight our partner spotlight, which will be out to your right when you are leaving. Our partner spotlight for this month is Virginia Kids Belong. They are an wonderful organization that is having a massive impact throughout Richmond with regards to foster care. They're working in the business sector, the government sector, and then the faith sector, and they're empowering and elevating people to help end the crisis of foster care throughout this state, and it is possible to do so. And so if you guys are interested, and let me just say this is not just about fostering a child, though if you want to do that, they will help you do that. This is also about how do you serve the families that are already fostering, and how do you help some of the organizations that are doing such great work. And so there's ways to get involved with that as well. And I believe Janet will be over there, who runs the whole organization. She's here today, and just please stop by and talk to her. She is wonderful and would love to speak with you about how to, let me just say this, if you start talking to her, you're going to do something. Like, she's that good. So, but just go ahead and talk to her on your way out. It'll be so great. And then we also have something else that we want to highlight there too. I want to get the name right. It's called a Nibble Nook. And one of our youths here at Hill City just started this to help some of the kids that go hungry on the weekends at schools. And she's in 9th grade, I believe, and she started this, and now it's starting to spread to other schools, other high schools in Richmond. And she has some information there too if you'd like to help, and she gives you like a list of what to do and how to help out. And it's like you get a shopping bag and you can deliver it, and they help have kids have food on the weekends. And so we want to support her in her endeavor in entrepreneurship as well. So she'll be over there too. So get involved, y'all. So you guys have a great rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you guys next week.